All right, everybody. Hi. I think we're back. I have no idea. This is Indy. Great. My restream thing crashed out too. That's awesome. Our internet is really, really glitchy and very slow. I've rebooted it twice. I have no idea if this is going to work, but we're just going to do these goddamn stories because we need to. Well, we don't need to, but
are they goddamn stories now?
They're goddamn stories. Upgraded. I'm not even picking up anything at Rockfin yet.
Hello,
awesome.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to do here. I don't see any streams. I don't know. I don't see anything, any signal being picked up anywhere.
Let me look.
Which says we're live. I hate the internet. I hate Optimum. All right. We're live.
He's in?
Apparently, but I don't give a fuck.
Duplicated stuff.
I don't give a shit. You know what? If they're there, hello.
Okay, now I see.
Okay,
we're
Nick.
Live on YouTube.
Okay, fuck it. If it's not live anywhere else, fuck these other platforms. Fuck it all. I don't care. I'm so upset. I don't even really want to do this anymore. But we'll do it. We'll plow through it because we need to. There's important shit going on here. Give everybody a chance to get back in. This is so fucking disheartening, really. Work our asses off to get a stream to get. There's one. Okay, finally. Rumble. Oh, Rockfin. About fucking time. Yeah, really choppy. Like awful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's like unwatchable. I don't even know what the point is. Anyway. All right. Esha. I'm sorry, Esha. My internet fucking blows. But I'm trying. So I wake up and I see this, or last night I go to bed and I see this thing about Jorge Glass, who is the former vice president of Mexico, and what's going on there. Oh boy. Where is he? He's in Ecuador. So what happened? And by the way, what's his name? Richard Medhurst also covered this really well. You can check out his video on this, but I wanted to go through this myself. To learn it as much as to go through Esha's thing and give her props. By the way, Esha gives us great referrals, both on INN Stack, on Substack, as well as Indie Media Today. So big love for Esha. So she says Mexico just ended diplomatic relations with Ecuador after Ecuador stormed into the Mexican embassy to arrest the former vice president of Mexico, Jorge Glass, who was seeking asylum there. The story is interesting, and there is a deep rabbit hole. Right, so first thing is you've got AMLO, right, and we can translate this post. Alicia Baracena, our Secretary of Foreign Affairs, has just informed me that police from Ecuador forcibly entered our embassy and detained the former vice president of that country, who was a refugee and processing asylum due to the persecution and harassment that he faces. This is a flagrant violation of international law and the sovereignty of Mexico, correct? Which is why I've instructed our chancellor to issue a statement regarding this authoritarian act, proceed legally, and immediately declare the suspension of diplomatic relations with the government of Mexico. Wow. And Ecuador, with the government of Ecuador, and that's AMLO saying that. So, in 2017, Ecuadorian VP Jorge Glass was sentenced for corruption for alleged bribes involving the Brazilian corporation Odebrecht. Remember that name because it becomes important. Right? Everybody remember Odebrecht? Right? That was a Brazilian company where the vice president, right, got sentenced to 6 years in jail Not long before, Odebrecht again was implicated in the fake corruption scandal involving Lula, the car wash. Remember that? Which was just a judicial coup.
Yep.
Right?
Okay.
So, as Brazil Wire explains, the Odebrecht scandal seems to selectively target only people who are hostile to U.S. interests in Latin America. In 2016, Odebrecht was fined by the DOJ for an alleged bribery scheme, but in exchange for leniency, they had to cooperate with all DOJ-related investigations. They pay at least $3.5 billion in global penalties to resolve the largest foreign bribery case in history. Okay? As Brazil Wire explains, under the FCA, U.S. has made a deal with many countries, and anytime dollars are used in a transaction, the DOJ can support an investigation. So this was again back in 2014. Operation Car Wash is a joint operation between the DOJ, FBI, SEC, a local Brazilian public prosecutor's office in Curitiba, and the Brazilian Federal Police. But this goes back. And what ended up happening was using the Foreign Corrupt Powers Act as justification, the DOJ-led team announces that it's targeting Petrobras, which is the oil company in Brazil, and several of Brazil's largest companies, such as Odebrecht and Embraer, who's a jet maker. The team begins a series of leaks to the media seeking to associate Dilma Rousseff's name with the corruption in Petrobras, who's Dilma Rousseff. They talk about them up above, right? During our next 4 years, top DOJ officials make repeated visits to Curitiba. That's weird, right? Now, the following leftist politicians were brought down with the only evidence against them, documents from Odebrecht saying that they accepted bribes. That's weird, right? And then we find out that Odebrecht itself was corrupt as fuck. So anything that they were indicted for being involved with, chances are they're lying about. Right? Here's Brazilian Supreme Court annulling the evidence against the president. Okay? Having been fabricated, manipulated, and directed, President Correa said. The case of this politician is not isolated. For the last 2 decades, Latin American leftist leaders have been persecuted through a lawfare that uses the media and justice system to drive them out of political life. They allegedly did this to Bolsonaro. This is what they're trying to do to Trump.
Yeah.
Right? This happened with Cristina Fernandez Kirchner in Argentina and Lula in Brazil. So the Odebrecht case against Jorge Glass was based on false testimony of an admittedly corrupt Conscienciao Santos, as well as evidence presented in the Lava Jato case in Brazil. Again, a lot has turned out that the stuff that was presented in Lava Jato was exactly the opposite of what they had sold it as. Brazilian justice, therefore, has just annulled the evidence against Jorge, including Santos's testimony for having been fabricated, manipulated, and directed. This farce is over, although he's continuously been targeted in a witch hunt by Ecuador's right-wing regime. So he moved, or he's been the VP. He's no longer the VP. In December, he asked for political asylum in Mexico. And he was going into the embassy, and he was in the embassy seeking asylum. Mexico had granted him asylum earlier this week. All right, so former VP arrested of corruption, now exonerated from that corruption, but worried for his life because the people that indicted him are now threatening his life, and he's given asylum by Mexico and in the Mexican embassy. Climate of repression is harsh. Remember that the only evidence against Jorge Glass is a spreadsheet from Odebrecht, which has been found to be as guilty and corrupt as fuck.
Spreadsheets.
Right? So what happened?
Yep.
I'm not thrilled that this comes from Tanky Punk, but they had some good receipts here. Reading a couple things that Esha linked related to Jorge Glass being essentially kidnapped from Ecuador's embassy in Mexico. The whole thing is part of a longer-term bit of geopoliticking by the USA in Latin America to overturn what is left of the pink tide of the early 2000s. And that includes, right? It's common knowledge that CIA gave bags of money away to government officials in Afghanistan. So why would the Justice Department, the SEC, and the FBI be so worried about corruption in Latin America that the U.S. government would prioritize the issue in the 2017 National Security Strategy? It was weird. In Brazil, where a joint investigation with those agencies and federal police, public prosecutors, resulted in one indirect impeachment and the probable imprisonment of ex-President Lula, who lifted $36 million above the poverty line for reforms to an apartment, right? They promised him, they claim that he had accepted an apartment as a gift, but he never had. He had never set foot in there, and he had never accepted it. For reforms to an apartment that the prosecutors have been unable to prove that he ever owned or set foot in, people are beginning to wonder if Odebrecht is being used as a Trojan horse by the U.S. government to commit lawfare attacks against politicians who are not fully aligned with their geopolitical objectives. The U.S. would never do that, right?
You ever wonder why the biggest condom size is not Trojan horses? You know? Like they went with Magnum. I feel like they missed out.
That's gross.
You know?
As the U.S. government lines its pockets with fines collected during the Lava Jato, all right, I would like to take a look at which Latin American leaders have been arrested and accused and speculate as to why the U.S. government may not consider them to be allies. And here they are. Here it is. The way they're doing this is through an alleged scandal involving Odebrecht, which conveniently ensnares officials from left-leaning governments across the region, except from what I understand, the evidence for corruption here is very limited. So who are these people? Here's the ex-president of Chile, plea bargain testimony by a corrupt businessman in exchange for a sentence reduction results in charges against her for receiving illegal campaign contributions from OAS Construction Company. Odebrecht. Here's again Lula with the apartment. Corrupt Odebrecht businessman who had his sentence reduced after agreeing to change his testimony to implicate Lula. Then you had Dilma Rousseff, who's the ex-president of Brazil, right? She's also widely and erroneously associated with Lava Jato corruption in the Anglo media, impeached and later declared innocent for bookkeeping infractions called fiscal peddling. So all these people didn't do anything, but they were framed, set up, and taken down. Here's the ex-president of Peru, Humala, another one. Right, so that's what they're saying here. And it's not just those four. Here we go some more. Here's Alejandro Toledo, who's the ex-president of Peru. Alejandro. Right? Then you've got Mauricio Funes from El Salvador. Again, accused of money laundering in the Lava Jato in the Lava Jato operation. Currently living in exile in Nicaragua. And for every one of these, there's a reason why the U.S. has beef with them and wanted to see them out. Kirshner, that's interesting. And this goes.
Argentina would have more beef. Argentina agriculture joke.
Absolutely wonderful beef from Argentina. Anyway,
Argentina.
Yes. Again, why the U.S. doesn't like him? He was targeted because he was part of a socialist government that the U.S. has been trying to overthrow since 2010. Ecuador is one of Venezuela's most important and vocal allies. Could the U.S. have done this to prevent him from running for president, which he likely would have at some point?
Could they? Would they? Have they done things like that before? Absolutely.
And this thread goes deep. Here, the recent reoccupation of Haiti, and we'll talk about Haiti in a little bit, is the military imposition of a plan. Again, this is from 2022. Developing long-term political economic relations with nations in U.S.-EU sphere of influence. All right, so Here's Glass was seeking asylum in Mexico, and AMLO had granted it just before they violated Mexico's sovereignty to force Glass back into custody. AMLO had previously sheltered Evo Morales, who was from Bolivia, right? And there's AMLO and Biden just a couple of weeks ago. But there's video of the ambassador to Mexico screaming about this, and he's apoplectic.
Yep. Apoplectic.
I love that word.
Using the schmancy words.
So here's Richard's thread about it. And again, go follow Richard Medhurst. Watch his video on this too if you're interested in more stuff. Indie Media Award Henri. All right, insane violation of international law and the Vienna Convention. This is the new lawless standard set when Israel bombs Iran's embassy and the world is silent. Allegedly. I don't think they've actually claimed responsibility for that yet.
Wake up, asshole.
Yeah, that guy. So, diplomatic personnel and premises, which is the embassy, consulate, and residence, are inviolable. No one can enter without permission. A Mexican embassy is officially Mexican soil. The Ecuadorian police had no right to be there. Correct.
Their country of origin soil, like the Iranian one.
So now, what Richard is saying is that now that an embassy has been bombed, all bets are off, and people are realizing that there's no liability or accountability for doing anything if you are friendly to the U.S., so this is what they pulled. Now,
other than just start World War III.
Right. This is the thing that I wanted to bring for Richard that I didn't see anybody else note. Worth noting that Ecuador also handed Julian Assange over the London police and the U.S. in exchange for a nice IMF loan. They revoked his political asylum and arbitrarily revoked his citizenship. In that case, however, police were granted permission to enter the Ecuadorian embassy. Here, they were not.
French fried when he should have pizzaed.
Yeah, you're going to have a bad time. He said he's also getting reports that several Mexican diplomats and embassy staff were injured in this illegal attack with Ecuadorian forces. I don't, for sure, that's reported by Richard, but I don't have that confirmed. So, that's bad.
That is bad.
Bad is bad. And we somehow managed to continue to have a stream. I don't know how, but we have one. Thank you to everyone who actually is here. And all right, so we got 23 people. All right, cool, folks. All right, we are going to do one more story, and then we'll try to get to boats and see if that's going to work. Oh, before we do, let me put this up real quick. If you are of means and you do like what you are seeing and you don't really see that in too many other places, drop us a couple of bucks. You can do that here. Patreon, Substack, Rumble. Easiest, fastest way is via Cash App. We're also over on the Rockfin, rockfin.com/INDLeftNews or /INN. We're on both networks. At least we may be. I don't know what we're live with right now. But you can drop us some cash over there if you are so inclined, and we really appreciate it. But Patreon subscription, awesome. Cash App, great. Of course, we love our Substack people. All right, so how we doing over here? Hunter S. Jr. Oh boy, what are we doing over here? Mastermind. Okay, Hunter S. Thompson Jr. What's going on? Mastermind is back. Okay, good. Glad you're done. I didn't know he had a junior either, but apparently now he does. Also, if you want to hook up INN, we are trying to raise money to get Jesse some new computer equipment. That's what that QR code over by Reese's face is doing over there. So,
where's the money, Lebowski?
It's not really here, so I can tell you that. All right.
Show me the money!
Tom Cruise won't come out the closet. Such a funny bit on South Park. All right. So here we go. Are we in the middle of World War III? Like, has it already started and we're just really not, a lot of people haven't figured that out yet? Well, I decided to have more of a conversation. I brought a couple of articles and a couple of publications to look at that kind of look at the global picture as a whole. But I'm going to rattle off some names right now of some places where there are some hot spots. And we're talking about, obviously, Ukraine, Russia for the last 2 years. You've got Israel-Gaza going on. You've got Taiwan and China. Then you've got the Israel faction, and that's Israel-Syria, Israel-Lebanon, Israel-Iran with the embassy going on there. Right?
China.
Thank you. That one. Whatever the fuck is going on in Africa, because there's crazy shit going on in Africa.
Yep.
Then you've also got Ecuador, and we'll talk about Olabini and Ecuador in a little bit. Brazil with their internet crackdown, and we're going to show you a video from Michael Schellenberger to talk about Brazil. Argentina is still going crazy, and they're having protests in the streets, and Javier Milei is not really very popular. There's the unrest that's happening in Haiti, where they're pushing in order to, to have some kind of a intervention by U.S. and Western military. You have the European farmers in France and Germany and Holland that have been revolting back against some of the measures that have been taken against them by their governments. And then, of course, you got all the domestic stuff like Baltimore and the Key Bridge dropping. And you've got the earthquake that happened in New Jersey this week. Holy crap. We went through an earthquake. There's just all kinds of weird natural...
What? You know what that Who Are These People was?
Yes, I do.
You hear that?
I didn't.
That was a dono.
I didn't, but that was a dono.
There was a dono somewhere.
That's from our brother Colin Radix Carter, actually. But we'll get to that in a few minutes. I'm just, the question is, with all of this happening, so I mentioned Baltimore and the earthquake. You've had food plants blowing up all over the place and setting on fire. If you subscribe to that at Raws Alerts, RAWS Alerts on Twitter, you'll realize how bad things really are and how much stuff is constantly being lit on fire. But I wanted to give a shout out to this Substack newsletter, Carina's newsletter, Carina Malatesta, who is an independent journalist, an independent aggregator, anti-imperialist, and she aggregates news like we do, but she does a phenomenal job of it. So she usually posts a couple times a week. And she will do a global news roundup, meaning she'll go situation or country or conflict by conflict and give you a roundup. And she's doing phenomenal coverage on Palestine and on what's happening in Gaza and West Bank. And she'll post from Al Mayadeen quite often, as well as Middle East Eye, Electronic Intifada, Vanessa Beeley, Intifada, yes.
Infratada.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Right. Here's the American Everyman, who was asking obvious questions about the World Central Kitchen employees. By the way, if you want to learn a little bit more about that, check out INN News. I joined the guys this week on Wednesday night, and we talked about the Jose Andres, the staffers that were murdered or killed by Israel, targeted by drones and multiple times. They claim Hamas, of course, just like usual. All right, Hamas. But there's some Telegram channels to follow, and again, Carina will just go through and show, okay, now here's what's happening in Yemen. Again, mostly from Al Mayadeen, but from Hod Yemen News, and
I heard
we've got.
I heard Hamas did that earthquake in New York not that long ago.
Mhm.
The anti-Semitic earthquake, I hear. You know,
I thought that was the secret tunnel that did that.
one of them.
So
It's
you get
hard
an
to
update
tell.
on
You know,
what's
I feel
happening
like
in.
that's Hamas propaganda.
We get an update on what's happening in Syria and Lebanon. We get an update on what's happening in Iran and Iraq, and in Africa. Again, I just want to. I'm not going to actually go through all this stuff because it is so in depth. She does an incredible job, and she publishes something like this a couple times a week, 2-3 times a week. Wow, and it's a lot. And now you've got, okay, here's where you get domestically what's going on with regard to Israel.
Oh,
then
I remember what. See, there's Hamas tunnels underneath the New York Jewish tunnels.
Oh, is that what's going
and that's
on?
what did it?
Secret tunnels under the secret tunnels. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. You've got Ron Paul with Jim Bovard.
Ron Paul.
Yep. What's going on in Central and South America?
And forget it. Oh,
there was also a Mexican mayoral candidate who was murdered in her car recently. That was in the last Roundup.
Yeah.
Terrible. What's going on in Europe? Poland says Israel apologized for the massacre. Sure they did. And Poland probably accepted that apology on behalf of nobody. What's going on in Asia?
Nobody.
From Russia and from Al Jazeera and Al Mayadeen and Global Research. So you're getting like a picture from non-Western sources, which is what we also tend to look towards. And I thanked her for that. And I said, hopefully we could find something to show on Sunday night. Carina, we just decided to show the whole thing. And thank you. And I really appreciate all the work that you do. And Carina's not the only one. So if you want in-depth analysis, and I know we've talked about them before on Russia, Ukraine, and this is providing you with perspective from both sides. Now, they were nice enough and kind enough to gift me with a paid subscription. And I'm going to share with you how deep this goes in a paid post, so that you can see just why. Oh God, this is awful. This is an Israeli soldier targeting an unarmed Palestinian who is going for food. Published by Al Jazeera. Shooting a Palestinian carrying food aid that was dropped hundreds of meters away. I don't want to play this video, and I'm not going to play this video. It's a snuff film. Despite them posing no Palestinian threat and walking away, the Israeli forces shoot him repeatedly until ensuring that he's dead. Right, yep. So that's being pulled from the Islander, and then you've got Will Porter on Scott Horton and Kyle Anzalone. Harris is calling on Smoothie X12 and Rachel Blevins and Richie about what's happening between Iran.
Smoothie X12? Why does that sound like Elon's new juice bar? You know?
It might be. Or child.
Yeah.
Your favorite Weeb Union.
I really love Jamba Juice.
I know Reef loves the Weeb. Reef loves the Weeb Union that really looks at front lines and seeing what's next and where this is going. You've got Daniel Davis and his deep dive. They look at military summary. This one really looks at all of the different fronts at a very up close level. You can see where the troop movements are, where they're gaining, where they're losing, etc. All right. Who's this one? Through the eyes of, and I don't remember who this is. Duran. We've got Alexander and Alex Christoforou, the two members of the Duran. And our friend Danny Haifonk, friend of the show. Shout out to Danny. Go follow him. He also, by the way, is a great referrer to Indie Media Today. Got to meet him last month. But look at how much aggregation there is. Look at how deep you can go. And then there's the Telegram channels that they aggregate and pull in data from. Where these maps are. And then video. Explosions. Only 8 seconds.
Explosions.
actual coordinates and where you see stuff happening and who's found where. Like, this is not just, I mean, it could be propaganda. It could be, you got to take it for what it is with a grain of salt. But I'm guessing that this person is researching if they're putting out this kind of information. And they're not just putting it out on behalf of Russia. They're also reporting what the Ukrainian side is saying. It really does both sides this, so you can try to get an idea for yourself. Now, we found Russian stuff to be a lot more accurate and a lot less overinflated than all the data and information that's coming out of Ukraine. And the allegations that Ukraine has made, and then it turns out, like, for example, the dam. You know, who destroyed the dam? Wasn't Russia. Right? Then they're pulling headlines from Asia Times and more from Strategic Culture, more war reports and where the front lines are and where there are actual deaths happening. Wow. So in depth. And it just keeps going and going and going and going for miles. All right. Now, here's the other thing. And we heard about the Iran situation, that Iran's embassy in Beirut or in Damascus, Syria, was attacked, was bombed. And there were six employees and who were killed. Again, sovereign territory. So U.S. and Israel put troops on high alert in anticipation of an Iranian attack, and Iran apparently just warned the U.S. and said, stay out of this if you don't want to be implicated too. Except we know that the U.S. is likely involved in supporting Israel. More Telegram coordinate stuff, skirmishes. And then here he goes. This is one of the older ones. The Ukrainian Nazis can't win there. They arrange terrorist attacks. Now you've got nuclear plant, the Zaporizhia NPP plant now was hit.
Damn it, with NPP.
And of course, they're accusing Russia of doing this. Russian scum, right?
Yep.
Let me call the Russians to help.
So yes, Zombie, I agree with you. It is crazy the level that you can follow the war at these days. But it's really hard to disseminate what's the truth from what's not. I mean, you have to take in all these data points. And some of it may turn out, and you can't even necessarily act in real time because you don't know what's real and what's not. Yep, Hambo, we've had a couple of crashes. I've had to reboot my internet. I don't know if it's going to make it. We're back down to almost nothing again. But we're almost done here with this, and then we'll go over to boats. I mentioned Ola Binney before. I don't know if you know who Ola Binney he was, but he was implicated again and arrested, involved with Julian Assange and for spying. He says, yesterday they convicted me. Guess where he is? He's in Ecuador. For now, I'll only say this. If you use Tor or Telnet in Ecuador, you have criminal intent automatically. If you have technical knowledge, you have the possibility of doing a crime, and that there is enough to be convicted. They're going to lock up all the
just
computers.
Using the Tor browser was enough?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that plus also, I'm sure, doing something the West didn't like. But, you know, like, you know.
Yep. So he says maybe search on Shodan, which is an Internet of Things company, right? And search for Telnet in Ecuador and check how many companies have criminal intent, quote unquote. Also, in our day of deepfakes, you can be convicted only based on an image containing criminal terminal text with no supporting logs or forensic.
Right.
And that's what they did. So EFF, INRED, Andrea Maldonado, and the ODJ Ecuador all stood up for him, and he wanted to thank them. This is a continued persecution because he was involved with WikiLeaks. So more news, Ola Binney, and you've got, again, truth tellers being persecuted by countries like where they're violating the sovereignty of other countries right now. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Michael Schellenberger. So I read this yesterday and I asked Nico for some information. Give me some information. Something. Tell me about what you know. What the hell's going on here? Schellenberger says Brazil is on the brink. And I'm not a crazy fan of Michael Schellenberger. He's done a couple things that I like, and he's done a lot that I don't like. Twitter files I do like. This is interesting. I'm reporting to you from Brazil, where a dramatic series of events are underway. At 5:52 p.m. Eastern Time today, April 6th, that's yesterday, Twitter, or X Corporation, formerly known as Twitter, announced that a Brazilian court had forced it to block certain popular accounts in Brazil. Then, less than 1 hour later, the owner of X, Elon Musk, announced that X would defy the court's order and lift all restrictions. As a result, we will probably lose all revenue in Brazil and have to shut down our office there, but principles matter more than profit. That warrior for free speech, quote unquote, Elon Musk. Oh my God. Roll my eyes all the way back in my head. However, at any moment, Brazil's Supreme Court could shut off access to Twitter for all of the people of Brazil. It is not an exaggeration to say that Brazil is on the brink of dictatorship at the hands of a totalitarian Supreme Court justice named Alexandre de Moraes. President Lula is participating in the push toward totalitarianism. Since taking office, Lula has massively increased government funding of the mainstream corporate media, mainstream news media, which is also government funded, most of which are encouraging increased censorship. What Lula and de Moraes are doing is an outrageous violation of Brazil's constitution and the UN Declaration of Human Rights. What does Schellenberger know about Brazil, right? At this moment, Brazil is not yet a dictatorship. It still has elections, and the Brazilian people have other means at their disposal to confront authoritarianism. Again, he is a fear-mongering right-winger, so some of this I take a little bit with a grain, but for the federal Supreme Court and the Superior Electoral Court are directly interfering in those elections through censorship. 3 days ago, 3 days ago, Schellenberger published a Twitter files for Brazil. They show that Moraes has violated the Brazilian constitution. He illegally demanded that Twitter reveal private information about Twitter users who used hashtags he considered inappropriate. He demanded access to Twitter's internal data, violating the platform's policy. He censored on his own initiative and without any respect for due process posts on Twitter by parliamentarians from the Brazilian Congress. And Moraes tried to turn Twitter's content moderation policies into a weapon against supporters of Bolsonaro. Now, Michael says this as an independent and nonpartisan journalist. I'm not a fan of either Bolsonaro or Trump. My political views are very moderate. Okay, but I know censorship when I see it. Okay, I guess. The Twitter files also revealed that Google, Facebook, Uber, WhatsApp, and Instagram betrayed the people of Brazil. If such evidence is proven, the executives of these companies behaved like cowards. They provided the Brazilian government with personal registration data and telephone numbers without a court order and therefore violating the law. When Twitter refused to provide Brazilian authorities with private user information, including direct messages, the government attempted to sue Twitter's top Brazilian lawyer. When Schellenberger, and this is where I found interesting, lived in Brazil in 1992, he was very left-wing. At the time, Lula and the PT slogans without fear of being happy. Huh? In recent days, I've spoken to dozens of Brazilians, including professors, journalists, and respected lawyers. Everyone tells him they're shocked by what's happening. They told him that they're afraid to speak their mind and that the Lula government is complicit in creating this climate of fear. It's not the first time that Lula's gone along with what the Biden administration wants. Now, I'm going to go through this video in a second. Brazil belongs to the Brazilians. It's not Michael's country, as he admits. As such, there are limits to what he's capable of doing, but he can say things that many Brazilians do not feel safe saying. Alexandre de Moraes as a tyrant, and the only way to deal with tyrants is to confront them. It is first up to Brazil's senators to confront the tyrant, and it's up to the people of Brazil to demand that their senators do so. So, let's hear what Michael has to say. It's not too long, 4.5 minutes. So, and action.
Hey everyone, it's Mike Schellenberger, and I'm reporting to you at this moment from Brazil, where a dramatic series of events are underway. At 5:52 p.m. Eastern Time today, April 6, 2024, X Corporation, formerly known as Twitter, announced that a Brazilian court had forced it to, quote, block certain popular accounts in Brazil. Then, less than 1 hour later, the owner of X, Elon Musk, announced that X would defy the court's order and lift all restrictions. As a result, said Musk, we will probably lose all revenue in Brazil and have to shut down our office there. But principles matter more than profit, he added. At any moment, Brazil's Supreme Court could shut off all access to X Twitter for the people of Brazil. It is not an exaggeration to say that Brazil is on the brink of dictatorship at the hands of a totalitarian Supreme Court justice named Alexandre de Moraes. President Lula da Silva is also participating in this push towards totalitarianism. Since taking office, Lula has massively increased government funding of the mainstream corporate news media, most of which are encouraging increased censorship. What Lula and de Moraes are doing is an outrageous violation of Brazil's constitution as well as the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. At this moment, Brazil is not yet a dictatorship. It still has elections, and the Brazilian people have other means at their disposal to confront authoritarianism. At the same time, the Federal Supreme Court and the Superior Electoral Court, which it controls, are directly interfering in those elections through censorship. 3 days ago, I arrived in Brazil and published the Twitter files for Brazil. They show that de Moraes has violated the Brazilian constitution in multiple ways. He illegally demanded that Twitter reveal private information about Twitter users who used hashtags that he considered inappropriate. He demanded access to Twitter's internal data, violating the platform's policy. He censored on his own initiative, without any respect for due process, posts on Twitter by parliamentarians from the Brazilian Congress. And Moraes tried to turn Twitter's content moderation policies into a weapon against supporters of then-President Jair Bolsonaro.
Yes, I know.
I say all of this as an independent and nonpartisan journalist. I'm not a fan of either Bolsonaro or Trump. My own political views are very moderate, but I know censorship when I see it. The Twitter files revealed also that Google, Facebook, Uber, WhatsApp, and Instagram betrayed the people of Brazil. If this evidence is proven and admitted to, the executives of those companies behaved like cowards. They provided the Brazilian government with personal registration data and telephone numbers without a court order. Therefore, they violated the Brazilian laws. When Twitter refused, to their credit, to provide Brazilian authorities with private user information, including direct messages, the government of Brazil attempted to sue and hold Brazil's top Twitter attorney in criminal contempt. When I was in Brazil in 1992, at the time, the slogan of the Workers' Party was "without fear of being happy." In recent days, I've spoken to dozens of Brazilians, including professors, journalists, and respected lawyers. All of them told me that they are shocked by what is happening here. They told me that they themselves are afraid to speak their mind, and that the Lula government, the Workers' Party government, is complicit in creating this climate of fear. Look, Brazil belongs to the Brazilians. It's not my country. Such there's limits to what I'm capable of doing. But what I can say is that there are many Brazilians who do not feel safe saying what must be said. Alexandre de Moraes is a tyrant, and the only way to deal with tyrants is to confront them. It's up to Brazil's senators now to confront this tyrant, and it's up to the people of Brazil to demand that their senators do so. In 1992, my best Brazilian friend gave me a t-shirt that I loved. On it was a cartoon of Brazil's military dictators who had painted the sky black. Beside them were children who were smiling and throwing stars up into the dark sky. It said, "They painted the sky black, but we brought back the stars." Alexandre de Moraes and Lula are painting the sky black. The time has come for the Brazilian people to let the light...
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Why do you oi?
This is, well, more authoritarianism. Oops, sorry. It's starting again.
Sure.
But we've got more authoritarianism happening.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily, I feel like Schellenberger feels like this is like, the lefties are at it again.
Well, no, it's,
right?
well, sort of. Yes. The neolibs are at it again, demanding private information from private corporations.
Brazil still has economic ties to us quite heavily.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've seen how even though they're a member of BRICS, they're one of the shakier members in that alliance, them and India, right? Like, they tend to still follow some, like, Western military stuff. So, you know, I think Lula has to walk a pretty fine line over there. So, you know, he might feel that this is worth going after, depending on what, you know, if he can get away with it. He might be being asked to do it. Who knows? You know? But, I mean, it may not be entirely him, right? Like, we know how our deep state works. Who knows how Brazil's deep state works? So...
Well, yeah, I mean,
you know,
Israel has been invading and going into Syria. They assassinated a Hamas leader in, you know, in somewhere in Syria. They've been violating those sovereign countries, you know, and there's been no repercussions for that whatsoever yet, at least.
Did you ever watch Brazil? Terry Gilliam flick?
No. Somebody said Terry Gilliam called it though, Earl of Laurel. Good for you, man.
Yeah. It's a movie. And you know,
right,
I don't know. It's like 1984 and Blade Runner but it's got a weird feel to it. It's good.
What about Sweden and Finland? Sweden now joining NATO this week after Finland joined last year.
Well, isn't Azerbaijan is thinking about it too, right?
I mean, it's only a military alliance at this point. It's not really an economic one. Although when you are friends with NATO countries, that brings other stuff with it. But what they are saying and what they are claiming, but the big one was, of course, Antony Blinken this week announced that Ukraine was going to at some point be added to NATO, which is Putin's line in the sand. It is effectively the equivalent of Russia or somebody that the U.S. perceives to be an enemy or an aggressor against us, making an agreement with Mexico to put troops in there and biolabs and who knows what. I would very much like to see something like that kind of happen, almost to make the U.S. see, to see how they would react. But we know how they would react. It would be scorched earth.
Enemy spotted.
Right? So, how much of this is all coordinated in order to keep the world not moving forward and destabilized, so that the U.S. sells more weaponry to all of them who are fighting the battles against each other, but also that the multipolar world is not able to come together and the U.S. maintains its hegemony and its dominance in the marketplace until everybody stops doing business with us because they realize that we're the ones that are lighting everything on fire everywhere, which has already started to happen.
Yeah.
We're
blue.
It's very short-sighted. It's very short-sighted. And And it's
Only
being
blue can prevent laser fires.
it's of course being done in the name of profit.
As it always is.
So give Carina a follow over that. Carina Malatesta.substack.com. I will put all the links in the description after the show's over. Also on the Substack.
Have you
Go ahead.
ever seen I'm trying to remember what it is. Speaking of Terry Gilliam. I think it's the Monty Python Life or whatever, where they have the corporate pirate boats, right? Where they're like warring against each other, the like big office buildings, and that's the way the world seems right now. Terry Gilliam was on it, and the scene in Brazil where like they have like the FBI drop into the normal people's homes. It's got like pipes everywhere, and just dystopian nonsense. Also very applicable. Just like random people because of what they think and say. So.
Okay. Well, all right, let's put this up one more time. If again, we appreciate all the support that we get from our members. Thank you for INN member Colin Radix Carter donating $5 to the Jesse Jet Fund. That's at co-fi.com/Indie News Network. Again, you can put that up.
Yep.
That's over where Reef is over here, over there in the corner. Hey, check that out. You can scan that. Other side. That side. Yeah, there. A little too far. Anyway, we're going to come back and do boats. This was fun. Somewhat.
Yep.
At least we did get through 2 stories, and then is the stream still extremely choppy? I don't know, but we are really low in
kind of backs people up. And then
we are it likely is pretty choppy, but now it's starting to drop some frames again. I'm sorry everybody. My internet's been really crappy tonight. I've had two crashes, and we're going to try to do what we can for boats. We'll be back in a little bit. I know originally I had put
who's got to back it up a little bit, and it's okay for people. So
yeah,
occasionally might catch up to some buffer, but who knows? You probably got to call. What is it?
Optimum is the cable company here. The garbage.
And they'll probably tell you,
We are deeply sorry.
We're sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're so
sorry.
We're so sorry. We're sorry. Okay. Here's the chat thing. That's the link for boats. If you are over on the Rumbles, I don't know if we're live over there, but anywhere we are live, I'll drop the boats, the link for boats, and hopefully someone will see it. Everyone watch Brazil.
Yep.
That's what Earl of Laurel says.
Yep.
Cool.
Very good.
All right, so
second that.
For those who don't know, boats smashing into other boats is our react show. We're just going to, after all this crap that we just went through in this horrifying World War crap, we're going to change it up and watch some funny shit and laugh our balls off while we get high. So we'll be back probably in about 15 minutes or so. Let's figure on 12:30.
Probably less than that.
Well, I need to take a bong and maybe pee, but set up all the streams and everything else. So that'll take me a few minutes.
Nice time, and
I don't even know if it makes sense to do that. It's just so spotty and choppy. Even after midnight, it's really weird. Like, who's still watching? Who's still like online? There's some kind of a spike in my line underneath it. Maybe it's raining out. I don't know. Anyway, yep, we're gonna try boats. Boats is next. So I love you all. I really appreciate you sticking with us. Stick around. We're not going anywhere, but we're going to be on a different stream. Check it out. 12:30. And What do we support independent media? It's more important than ever. Right. Support independent media. Do that.
Keep listening to Boats, people. We'll be back in a bit.
I think I liked it better.